Hey nerds, and welcome to Supergirl, Theories and Conspiracies. I'm Brian from Good Nerd Bad Nerd. So this week on Supergirl, we got the background story of Martian Manhunter. We got to finally see how he got into the body and into the role of Hank Henshaw. And presumably we found out what happened to Alex and Kara's dad. But as interesting as all of that was, there was two really big things that got teased this week that we're going to talk about. But first, really quick, a couple John Jones things. One, the Oreo-like cookies he's eating in the prison cell, the Chocos, whatever you want to call them. This is a reference, obviously, to the comic. These Oreo-like cookies are addictive to Martians. And when I say addictive, not just like, oh man, I really need some Oreos, but the chemical makeup of them interacts with the Martian physiology in a way like a drug. In the comics, it's Batman and Maxwell Lord. Maxwell Lord at the time is acting as kind of an overseer liaison for the Justice League. It's at their kind of prodding and investigating that they find out that John really is addicted to them, and it is treating his body physiologically like a drug addiction. So that was a nice little shout out there. I doubt they'll go down that road, but you never know. So then the other thing, in one of the flashbacks when we see Jeremiah Danvers talking with John Jones, and we get this kind of backstory about fire and how he hates fire. His entire world was destroyed by fire. Fire has long time been a weakness of the Martians, but it's not really a physiological weakness. It's more of a psychological weakness. So it's an interesting thing because John Jones is a very powerful character, but he does have this kind of debilitating weakness to fire. Now, it should be pointed out that the character that destroyed his planet, essentially, is Malafalak. And I'm pretty sure I'm mispronouncing that character's name, but he's another Martian, and he's described basically as the Martian Manhunter's Joker. So if you want to get a taste of what that character's like, in the Justice League, there was one of the films that they did. It had Vandal Savage in it as and there was the League of Doom, Justice League Doom. Hey, there you go. Malafalak is one of the villains that is brought into the Justice League Legion of Doom. So you can get just kind of a taste of him there. Now, the first big thing this week, Colonel James Harper. This guy was played by Eddie McClintock, who people will know from Warehouse 13. He had a brief single episode on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But Jim Harper, in the comics, originally was a police officer in the Metropolis area, and he became a legal guardian of some kids that were they were breaking the law, but he thought they were good kids. And while doing that, he became a vigilante, literally called the Guardian. I think originally he was the Golden Guardian, and they were his kind of team of support. They were his backup. The Newsboy Legion is what they were called. So Jim Harper and this role of the Guardian has been around for a very long time. This is from the golden age of comics, a very long time ago. It's also significant that they introduce him at the same time they're introducing Cadmus, because the boys went on to essentially be the founders of Cadmus. Now, it's interesting, and why this is important is basically the kids didn't want to see their mentor and father figure die, so they saved his life by transferring his consciousness into a younger clone of his body. So cloning is now coming into Supergirl. So this clone took up the predecessor's role, and he became the head of security for Project Cadmus as the Golden Guardian. Eventually he just dropped Golden and just became the Guardian. Post-Crisis is when that happened. So you've got a clone of Jim Harper acting as the head of Project Cadmus security. And it's just, Project Cadmus is a crazy thing. But he's been cloned multiple times. He's been killed and cloned. And he stayed with Project Cadmus essentially until Amanda Waller and President Luthor there was a big kind of falling out there, and he had to walk away. But for a long time he was the head of security there. Vigilante, known for doing good and fighting with Justice League, things like that. Now, it should also be known that technically he is the uncle of Roy Harper, who's Speedy, known for the Green Arrow. So, a very interesting character with a lot of crazy background. Now, Project Cadmus, this is... I'm trying my best to explain this because it's kind of a confusing organization. A lot of people will remember it or recognize the name from Justice League Unlimited, and Young Justice. Cadmus played a big role in that, and in kind of the way you see it is kind of the different versions of Cadmus in the comics have been portrayed equally in those series. So essentially it's a fictional genetic engineering program. The Newsboys started it the Newsboy Legion started it in order to kind of save their mentor, but it changed and developed over time. It was renamed Project Cadmus after the Greek legend of Cadmus, who created warriors from the teeth of dragons. So that actually is a really good idea of what they're trying to do. They are trying to make earthly superheroes based off of aliens or metahumans, things like that they would control, essentially. In Justice League, this is a government-run project that's designed as a countermeasure in case the Justice League ever goes rogue. And in its most noble sense, that's what it is. It's a last stop against superheroes going bad, but obviously it gets corrupted. It was responsible for the creation of the new Superboy, who was a clone that was created from Superman and Lex Luthor's DNA, and a lot of other clones. They also had a genetic program that essentially created these kind of half-alien, half-human DNA hybrids. They call them DNA aliens. So there's a long history there. I am barely scratching the surface on this, but it'll be very interesting to see which version of Cadmus we're going to see. And if this means we're eventually going to see someone like Superboy, maybe a clone that has Supergirl's DNA and Maxwell Lord's. Hard to tell, especially with what Maxwell Lord's role is currently in the show. But that was Project Cadmus in a very small nutshell. But the last thing is we also got to see kind of the brand new emerging of Silver Banshee. And next week we get that crossover with Flash and Supergirl, so very excited for that, and we're really going to see Silver Banshee take full form with her costume and her powers. So until next week, this has been Brian from Good Nerd Bad Nerd, and this has been Supergirl, Theories and Conspiracies.